Good evening. Welcome to the Toronto Debating Society. Tonight is October 7th, 2014. This is a cross-examination debate. The resolution is, big box stores don't belong downtown. The first speaker is the Prime Minister, Gurjot, who will speak for 5 minutes. Please help me welcome Gurjot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So today's topic is big box stores don't belong downtown, and government is defining big box stores as a retail space that occupies enormous amount of physical space, averaging more than 100,000 square feet, usually plainly designed and often resembles like a large box, and carry a variety of products. And downtown is a central business district, or the central part of the town where there are all the tall buildings and office spaces, and belong to is should be part of or be open in this context. And we want to make it clear that this doesn't include the big companies that have large number of small size stores. So for our motion, we have 3 main points. So the first point is, downtown residents are not big box store customers. The leading investment firm, Goldman Sachs, had a research note published in July of this year where they predicted the end of the big box stores era. And they stated that most of the shoppers, mainly urban shoppers, are looking for a combination of value and convenience. And big box stores doesn't offer that. And they are turning more to web or online shopping, or to the small, conveniently located stores. And the narrow format stores that are drug stores and the dollar stores are thriving because of these business propositions. And also the demography of the downtown is mostly single people or the young couples, and most people who don't have cars. So these people are most likely not to visit the store, and they have to go and they are going to get their stuff online if it can be conveniently delivered to their places and free. And with the same day delivery and the fast deliveries, this is becoming even more enticing because they don't have to drive, they don't have to take the public transport to go to the stores. And also with more varieties coming with the Amazon kind of retailers, it is even becoming more popular choice for the downtown residents, and even many people are ordering their groceries online these days as well. So when the big box stores don't offer this value and convenience that downtown residents are looking for, and the big box and many of these companies have realized this, and based on this report as well, they are going for many small size stores, small format stores in many places in US as well. So our second point is more related to the urban planning. So if big box stores are open downtown, that will be an urban planning disaster, because that will cause more traffic to already burdened traffic system that we have here, because we are looking for ways to reduce the traffic in downtown rather than increasing more traffic that these stores tend to drive. And also this runs contrary when the city is planning to downtown more safer for pedestrians and the bikers. So we don't want to have more traffic and more delivery trucks as well coming into the downtown. And also Office of Consumer Affairs website has very rightly mentioned that Canadian municipalities have reduced the allocation of urban land for the retail spaces in favor of industrial and office space. That tends to improve the employment opportunities in the downtown, and not the retail stores, where the Thomas Muller report clearly tells that wherever these big box stores, especially Walmart, goes, they reduce the number of jobs, destroy the jobs in long term than they create. And our third point is more regarding that the big box stores don't fit into the aesthetics of downtown. So these stores don't fit in the city's traditional neighborhood as well as the urban streets, because they are plainly designed, They have no show windows. They have no good sense of design. And it doesn't go well with the downtown where we want to make it more livelier, more better, more good looking for the visitors as well, and for the residents as well. And they also contribute to a lot of noise and energy pollution as well, as there's more energy is required to run these stores, and there are more delivery trucks coming into the downtown because to manage the supply chain of these stores. So government says please support this motion.
Very good. The next speaker is the leader of the opposition, Adrian, who will ask questions for 2 minutes to Gurjot, and then he will speak for 5 minutes. Please help me welcome Adrian.
Mr. Prime Minister, are you aware of how many new stores are coming into downtown Toronto which would qualify as big box stores?
I'm aware of one, that is Target.
So you're not aware of Leon's moving in 2009, or Crate and Barrel in the former Big Bop building in downtown Toronto near Queen and Bathurst, or Target, or Loblaws, or Joe Fresh, or any of the other big box retailers?
Do you know about the definition of the big box stores, as we said, more than 100,000 square feet?
That wasn't the question I asked. The question I asked was, were you aware of those stores I just mentioned coming into downtown Toronto?
I'm aware of the big box stores that Target qualifies in your definition.
So would you say that stores are being attracted to downtown Toronto?
No, this is just one Target store that is called the laughing stock of the Canadian retail space.
Could you explain why then Target is coming into downtown Toronto if there's no demand for their business?
There is no demand for business. It's more like that they have already lost $241 million. What they are not doing in US, they are trying to do here, and they are in desperate need of change. And this is another bad decision they are making. While the US Target is opening 300 small size stores in the urban centers there. That's contrary to what they are doing there.
Would you, in terms of the traffic problems that you mentioned in your argument, would you say that in the downtown core, people could walk to these stores?
Depends where you live. It's saying that even in the urban areas.
Say public transit, walk, public transit, or bike. Could they use these methods to go to these stores?
Oh, then it's more convenient to have small stores that are nearer to somebody's walking distance than have one big store.
How does biking to a store influence its size?
It depends on what kind of merchandise you are buying.
But you could still bike to that store and still purchase your things and have it delivered, correct?
Then you can buy it online as well.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, the Prime Minister has said that big box stores do not belong in the downtown core, and they've listed two spurious reasons as to why people in the downtown core should not have that choice to be able to use a big box store. And I'll be coming back to that later, as well as my partner. However, just to rebut some of the arguments that the Prime Minister made, the Prime Minister said that the size of the store somehow influences how you get to it. He said that it's going to impact on traffic. Well, the benefit of having big box stores downtown is that you have the density so that people can come to it using various modes of transportation. Unlike the suburbs where big box stores, you kind of have to drive or public transit is virtually non-existent. Big box stores downtown mean that there's a high density of people living close by, so that in fact you can walk to your big box store, you can take public transit, you can ride your bicycle, or even depending on how far you are, you can take your car. But the beauty of having big box stores downtown is the fact that taking your car is the least desirable option, and not only that, so So cars aren't being put on the road, for example. There's less pollution, there's less congestion, but more people are walking and using other alternative means of getting to these big box stores. So I think that the common sense evidence flies in the face of what the government is saying. You know, they're trying to sell you a load of goods, which isn't really kosher, Madam Speaker. The government also said something along the lines of that the urban environment isn't conducive to the big box store experience, that there isn't a lot of room for these stores which traditionally are 100,000 feet or more. But the beautiful thing about architecture and architects and designers is that they can modify and change and become innovative so that these big box stores are able to fit in the confines of downtown. For example, in the Globe and Mail article, February 18th, 2011, one of the owners of RioCan said that the next phase of big box growth in Toronto will be vertical, with stores stacked on top of one another like brightly colored Lego blocks, end quote. So you can see that there's obviously a way that these things can be overcome and changed so that big box stores can flourish despite the lack of land that they normally require. Instead of sprawling outward, they can go up. Now, as to why big box stores should happen in downtown, well, one of the big reasons that the opposition feels that they should be allowed is freedom of choice. You have the right, or you should have the right, to vote with your wallet or to vote with your feet and decide what you should or should not be able to buy and where and what kind of store you can buy it in. It isn't for the government to say, well, big box stores shouldn't be there because we think it's wrong. It's for you to decide whether or not you wish to purchase an item at a big box store. And if a big box store is succeeding, well then, that's great, because you have that choice. If it isn't succeeding, it's because you have that choice. It is not for someone to say, well, you can't have that choice. You can't have that choice to get cheap food. You can't have that choice to get cheap produce. You can't have that choice to get, cheap merchandise or inexpensive merchandise. You don't have that choice at all because you live downtown, whereas ironically enough, the only way you can get that choice would be to make it as inconvenient as possible for you to do so. So that's one of the reasons why we also believe that, that's what the opposition believes, that the downtowners should have that choice to be able to make their own decisions. In a capitalistic society, for example, economic decisions are best made by the people who are making those economic decisions. That, ladies and gentlemen, is you and me making decisions individually and affecting it as a whole. Another reason is that, change is inevitable, and there's no reason why downtown shouldn't be subjected to that change. We used to have grocery stores where you had to get someone to pick your food out for you and give it to the cashier. Now we have supermarkets. Change happens. Change is occurring all the time. Downtown Toronto or downtown urban centers shouldn't be immune to that change just because of a misguided approach that the government is taking. For all of these reasons, we beg the House oppose the motion.
The next speaker is the Member of Government, Gerry, who will ask questions for 2 minutes, and then he will speak for 5 minutes. Please help me welcome Gerry.
Thank you, Madam President. Sir, you mentioned choice twice. Once right in the beginning of your speaking, and then right towards the end, you mentioned again that people need a choice. Well, as far as I understand, there are, I don't know, I'm just guessing at the number, 10 to 12 to 15 box stores all around Toronto. So all those people that live in Toronto, 4 or 5 million of them, they've got these 15 box stores.
Is there a question in there, Mr.?
Yes, there is. It's coming. It's coming. What do they need? Do they need like a map of which store to go to? There's 15 box stores surrounding Toronto, and you're saying they don't have a choice.
What I'm saying is that they should have the choice to purchase, to go to a box store wherever they want to go to. And if they want to go to a store that is right down the street from them, well, they should have that choice. But more importantly, it's not the question of the government to dictate who should have choice and what kind of choice they have. It's not choice.
Thank you. I have a question, and it requires just a yes or a no. Can we handle that?
Possibly.
Do you realize that Toronto has the worst transportation system in North America? Yes or no?
I don't realize that.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, they do. And here you are wanting to add big box stores into the downtown mix of this worst transportation system, and you expect this is going to make Toronto a better place to live?
I expect people being able to walk to the big box store because they don't have to go to the 15 that are lining the city
Fine,
of
thank
Toronto
you.
like
My last
roofs
question.
of an orbit is
My
better.
last question, sir. What do you say to each box store that causes the decline of 40 to 50 small businesses?
I don't believe that box stores contribute to that, but I also have statistics saying that not only do box stores increase employment,
Thank you, sir.
but they cause cheaper prices as well.
Thank you. I'm going to do one piece of rebuttal before I start, and then I'll get into to my own points. The leader of the opposition said that big box stores can change architecturally. Now, if he listened at all, and I'm not sure he did, to the Prime Minister's definition, a big box store is a big square that looks like a box. Now, he's telling us, oh, but this can change. Of course it can. You can build them long and low, you can put them fancy, but then they're not what we have defined as a box store. So I just want to point that out to the opposition. Anyway, my partner has spoken to you about the prediction of the demise of the big box store by by Goldman Sachs analysts. We see evidence of this in Toronto, where both Sears and Hudson Bay have announced the closure of 2 of their downtown stores, citing changing buying trends and climbing overheads. In Barrie, a huge box store, Future Shop, lasted less than a year before it was closed. So this demise that is being predicted is being seen in Toronto. The Prime Minister also spoke of the changes which are predicted to come, wherein smaller specialty stores would arise in the downtown area. An example of this has just opened or has just come up in the Canadian Tire store, which is opened in the Eaton Centre. It's not a box store, it's a small specialty store, and we're going to see many, many more of these. In the last few years, while many box stores have been built in the Toronto suburbs, none are in existence in the core of the city. Not only would they be badly out of place architecturally in the core, but from a financial standpoint, a true box store of immense proportions would have astronomical rents or land costs if ownership was involved. Patrons parking as well as difficult would be nearly impossible from a dollar point of view, a practical nightmare to plan. For these reasons, none of the big 4, Best Buy, Walmart, Target, or Home Depot, have any large stores in the downtown core of Toronto. Now, as has been already mentioned, Target is planning on a huge store to be built in the downtown area of Toronto, a store scheduled to open in 2016. But before we throw our arms up in surrender, let's look at what is planned. It's slated to be 145,000 square feet, and the anchor store in a huge plaza of over 200,000 square feet of retail space. It will be located south of the Gardiner Expressway and east of York Street. Parking for the plaza will be underground and will be connected by underground pathways to Union Station and the myriad of retail stores in the path system. So why not throw up our arms? First of all, it is not a big box shape like all the others. There's a picture of it on Google, as many of you might be able to look at. It's a beautiful looking building. It's not what we would call a box store. It has no parking around it, which almost all box stores have. It is not in the downtown core because it's south of the Gardner Expressway. It's totally surrounded by condominiums. And this projected store will have products which will appeal to the wealthy condo owners, not the low-end merchandise that we usually see in box stores. Therefore, by our definition, it is not a box store. Target has had a very hard time breaking into the Canadian market. Many analysts look skeptically on this planned development by Target and their backers. Many people think it's a last desperation move to break into the Toronto market. Recently, Walmart planned to open a box store at Bathurst College, which would have destroyed the ambience of Kensington market area. It would also have caused the closure of many small stores after the predatory pricing practices of the Walmart chain. The leader of the opposition pointed out to us that people haven't said anything about not wanting box stores. Well, they did this time. This planned development was turned down by the people who amassed a petition of nearly 100,000 signatures to show their displeasure. These people have shown that big box stores are not wanted in the downtown area. And now we ask you to join us in supporting the resolution. Big box stores do not belong in downtown.
The next speaker is the member of the opposition, Jim, who will ask question for 2 minutes and then it will speak for 5 minutes. Please help me welcome Jim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As member of the government, I'd like to go back to a statement by the Prime Minister where he said that the demographics of the downtown core would not support a big box store. Do you agree with this? Yes, that was a question.
Could you go over that again, please?
The Prime Minister, if you were listening, said that the demographics of the downtown core was all singles and couples, and therefore the demographics would not support a big box store. Do you agree with that? And yet you're arguing that the downtown core will be supporting large boxes. That's not a question, sir. That was a statement.
Oh, sorry.
Now, the Prime Minister also said that consumers value and convenience. Do you disagree that big box stores can do that? Can offer value and convenience?
I disagree.
Okay. And do you disagree with the leader of the opposition when he said that architecturally a big box store could actually be in a high-rise building? I mean, it's 100,000 square feet that we're talking about here.
Which definition of big box store?
That was you really should listen to what the Prime Minister said. This is what the Prime Minister said, 100,000 square feet.
Nondescript box is what he
A
said.
box store with 100,000 square feet.
But now you want to change it architecturally, you said.
Well,
You just
that
said
was one of your arguments.
You just said that.
Let me ask questions here. One of your statements was aesthetically it couldn't fit in, but it could fit in, as the leader of the opposition pointed out, if it went vertically. Is that not a
Then it
proposition?
wouldn't be a big box store.
Of course, it could be a big box store because it would have
Depends on
100,000 square feet.
Depends on your definition, sir.
Well, exactly
Well,
that.
the government will make the definition, not you.
You said 100. The government said 100,000
So
square
we're sticking
feet.
to our definition.
Now, have you heard of anyone called Mr. Alois Schumpeter? Joseph Schumpeter?
No.
No, that is fairly obvious. He actually identified in 1942.
Your time, sorry.
He actually identified in 1942 in a paper, Capitalism, Society and Democracy, the idea of creative destruction. And what Mr. Schumpeter brought forward, and has been generally accepted by economists in Canada, and certainly in capitalist societies, that change happens. As the leader of the opposition pointed out, this is change and it's going to happen. The government has identified a big box store to suit their own particular purposes. They said it's 100,000 square feet in the downtown core where there's lots of big buildings, therefore you can't have a big flat building because architecturally it won't fit in and the whole thing will be a non-starter. Well, what the government is doing is they're actually trying to redefine the proposition as being totally undebatable. Of course you can't have it downtown where there's lots of big buildings, and have it 100,000 square feet where it's just flat. So the government is setting up the proposition to be self-serving. Ladies and gentlemen, we put this forward as being totally inconsistent with the debate tonight. It's either a big box store and it's 100,000 square feet. It doesn't necessarily have to go flat out, because in a place where there's big buildings, it won't fit. What the government has said is customers value and convenience. That's what big box stores do. Now, the fact that they're saying they don't belong downtown is taking away the choice, as the Leader of the Opposition said. Taking away the choice of the consumers. And the Prime Minister also said that the demographics won't support this. We in the opposition disagree totally. Not only is there an active community downtown in these condominiums, if you look at the Toronto skyline, a lot of these condominiums being built will add further to the downtown people. The Prime Minister said, demographics are single people. And these people will not be interested in a big box store. Well, everyone is interested in value, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone is interested in convenience, and everyone is interested in innovation. This is what the big box stores do. Now, what we're saying is that change happens. My first point will be, as Mr. Schumpeter would say, and did say many years back, change happens, and the government is trying to stop this change from happening. They're saying that it shouldn't be downtown for aesthetic reasons, for the amount of space that the buildings will take up, for various other reasons. Well, Mr. Schumpeter pointed out, with his ideas of creative destruction, that things will change, and over a period of years, new things will take their place. And in this case, it will be box stores. And as the Prime Minister pointed out, after box stores, it will be internet. It will be Amazon out in the boonies, and all of your goods will be delivered. But at the moment, what we're saying is that consumer deserves to have a big box store if it is viable. Not that they don't belong. If they don't belong, as the Leader of the Opposition pointed out, you will find out soon enough. Large companies are actively pursuing taking up space in downtown cores for the consumers. They think they're going to make money, and usually they do. In places like Chicago, places like Washington, downtown big box stores have made a breakthrough, and they have been accepted into the communities. Yes, big box stores will be a passing trend, and they will eventually be overtaken. But change is not necessarily bad. We are not against small businesses, as the member of the government pointed out, where he said approximately 50 businesses will be put out of business by a big box store. Well, in a big box store, 400 or 500 new jobs will be created. This is also the other side of having a big box store downtown. It is not that they don't belong, it's just that the government is trying to restrict choice, they're trying to hold back progress, and we in the opposition say this is not going to work. If a big box store wants to be downtown, we have no reason why it shouldn't be there, and if it fails, then that's up to the commercial enterprise of the people who live there. We say it will be a success because there are enough people there now, and there will be a demographic change in the future that will make big box stores profitable. Ladies and gentlemen, big box stores definitely do belong downtown, and we urge you this evening to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Now, the Prime Minister, Gurjot, is going to cross-examine the member of the opposition. Gurjot?
Member of the opposition, I have a few questions for you. Do you think when you say that stores have vertical growth of the stores, do you think if there are more stories in a building, the more stories will not have any rent, or they will go cheaper?
It will certainly be cheaper than the the member of the government proposed by having
Oh, no.
100,000 square feet across land. course
Member
it'll
of
be
the
a lot
government
cheaper.
never talked about the price. And the retail price,
Well,
and
I can't remember what the member of the government did say, actually.
you are saying that that the rent will go cheaper. And do you know how these stores work on the economies of scale? That they have a large variety of products at cheaper rate. And
Yes,
if,
I do know how they work.
do you think they can afford a really high cost rental space and a big and expensive architecture and still provide the same cost as in the suburbs?
I don't see why not.
Okay. And do you hear me say that when I said the Goldman Sachs report was from 2014 July, not from 1942?
I was wondering whether you were talking about 1942 or whether you were talking about the present day.
Goldman Sachs saying that, and do you also realize that change also, that if big box stores are going to the small format stores, that's also considered change and disruptive?
We're talking about big box stores, not small box stores here.
The
I
big-
forget. I think we're talking about large box.
Because
Not
the change
small, large to large
change
box stores.
is not having big box stores in the downtown. Change. Do you think it also will mean change if the big box stores in the suburbs try small format stores in the downtown?
It's possible, but why not having big box stores downtown anyway? I don't see any reason why not.
They are
You?
so. We have given all the reasons why they are not, why they shouldn't be there. No, I just want to.
Well,
I
they
just.
shouldn't be
And
there,
do you also
I don't know why
realize?
they
Do you
should
also
be.
realize that how many Canadians shop online?
It's actually 11.9%, yes.
It's not true. And on the 2014 report, 82% of all the online Canadians did. Thank you very much.
Very good. The next speaker is the leader of the opposition, Adrian, who will speak to us for 2 minutes for the opposition summation. Please help me welcome Adrian.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, Madam Speaker, to slightly and briefly touch on the point made by the opposition seconder, it is insane for anyone to believe that a 100,000 square foot big box store sitting on the ground is a big box store, whereas if one, say, had to walk up 3 flights of stairs, it suddenly would not be a big box store. We respectfully submit that the big box stores are well known, even as defined by the government, and that is what we're debating. However, to sum up, we, the opposition, believe that downtowners or people in highly urban centers should have the choice to be able to, for example, get cheaper food, get cheaper produce, have the convenience to get products which are available in big box stores close to where they live, close to where they work, close to where they play, close to where they relax, close to where they socialize. This is not a radical thought. And we also believe that living in a capitalistic country, that if the business model for big box stores don't work in the downtown, then they will close, just as they closed in Barrie, as the government said. So we don't understand why the government is denying people who live in downtown the choice and the freedom and the ability to either embrace or reject the change that is happening throughout society as a whole. So for all of these reasons, we beg the House to oppose the motion banning or saying that big box stores shouldn't be allowed downtown. Let the people decide, like they do everywhere else when it comes to this issue. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is the Prime Minister, Gurjot, who will speak to us for 2 minutes for the government summation. Please help me welcome Gurjot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We were really disappointed by opposition's arguments. They had any solid argument. The only 2 arguments presented were freedom of choice and change. And freedom of choice, the people of downtown have already given that mandate, that when 100,000 people signed a petition and Walmart stopped their plan or dropped their plan to open a store on Queen and Bathurst. So Bathurst and College, sorry, and that's the biggest mandate, and they have to stop. And also change. Opposition is going back to change to 1942. Change should happen, and change is in reality in today's world. Change is that doing more with less. That technology allows you to do. It is doing more with technology and with less space. That is the reality of 2014. That's the real change. These stores, the big box store companies have already known this truth, and in states, Target has 300 stores and Walmart have 300 stores in urban centers coming up. A very small format stores to value the convenience of their customers. So as a government, we want to say that that our downtown we need to preserve our downtown's beauty and its architecture beauty, and office spaces bring in more employment. More industrial and tech work brings in more employment. Big box stores in the long run, they destroy the jobs, more jobs than they create. And people downtown don't want big stores. They want more convenience and value that the combination of online plus the small, specialized, short format, narrow format store provides in the best way. So please support the motion that big box stores don't belong downtown. Thank you.
Please help me welcome Adi, who's going to be our adjudicator tonight.
Okay. Good evening. Oh, that was a very fine performance by all four debaters. It was quite juicy with a lot of information, a lot of details, and I really had to keep up with it. So let's just retrace the debate and see how it went. The Prime Minister came up and gave a very clear definition about the motion. He very clearly defined about the big box and how the big companies with small stores are and what down give points about the residents' choice in downtown, the demographic planning, and we have 3-4 good points. However, I'm sure that the Prime Minister had more points, but he ran out of time there. Then we had question. The Prime Minister handled, for example, he gave an example of Leon and Crate and Barrel, whereas the Prime Minister also replied to it very promptly and good. Then moving on to rebuttal, the leader of the opposition gave a good rebuttal. He started off by saying that he and his partner would be summing up and how they would kill the motion. Then the rebuttal, leader of the opposition talked about the impact on the traffic, which Prime Minister had made mention, the urban planning, and then he came up with new points about how the big boxes could change in architecture. Then 2 new points that the leader of the opposition emphasized about choice and change. And he kept on regurgitating that till it was fixed in the mind that change and choice is very important for people. And he's closed well in time. Then we moved on to the government seconder, Gerry. And Gerry asked questions to our leader of the opposition. However, there was a bit of a tiff there, and the questions were not exactly where the seconder would like to have. Then moving on to rebuttal, the government seconder rebut main points, like the big box stores can change architecture. That was a very good point, that you cannot, otherwise it changes the definition. And again, kept on referring back to the definition of the Prime Minister, which was a very good going back to the main points and the motion. Then Gerry also talked about the bad architecture, the target coming in 2016, which is not exactly downtown core, again referring to the definition and sticking and reconfirming that the Prime Minister's definition still stood. That finally, but we did not see some new points from the government seconder, fresh points that could add to the argument why big box stores should not be in downtown core. Then we moved on to the final speaker, that is Jim, that is the opposition seconder. And the opposition seconder caught the government seconder on the question on the demographics that Prime Minister had mentioned. And there was again a bit of tiff there about questions and answers. And then there was a timeout. So that I did not quite catch as to what the questions and how the answers were referred to. However, rebuttal by the opposition seconder was quite well. We had the change that was mentioned by the leader of the opposition that was reconfirmed by the opposition seconder. We had a slight play of redefinition of the motion there, and that's where I would give points to government, because government had a very airtight, solid definition of the motion, and that did not give much of a wiggle room to the opposition to play with. But still, they tried their best to play on the definition, and each one was trying to mold the definition so as to their advantage. And finally, the opposition seconder came up with expert advice, Mr. Schumpeter, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and he referred to the expert again and again and said how change is possible, which basically went back to the leader of the opposition's main point of change, and that was a good teamwork there. And finally, the opposition seconder finished in time. Moving on to the summation, we had the leader of the opposition coming up and summing up. Again, here in the summation, the leader of the opposition tried to hint on the definition and tried to pull out the definition and twist it so that the points of the opposition will fit in. And then, again, reaffirmed the points of choice. Again, there was a repetition. However, he did not bring in the points which the opposition seconder had made, such as very important 2 new points which the opposition seconder mentioned about job creations and the demographics in the future would support the big box stores. So we would have liked to hear that in the summation by the leader of the opposition. And finally, we had the summation from the Prime Minister. When Prime Minister started with the summation, it sounded more of a rebuttal. He tried to undercut the points of choice and change and tried to explain, no, it's not about choice and change. And before we could lose out there, the Prime Minister came back into summation and then mentioned again about architecture and the main points which he had mentioned initially. So luckily he saved the summation there. And overall it was quite a tight fight, but I feel that this debate was primarily tap dancing around the definition. It was always with the definition that there was a tug of war going on. And finally, I see that the main points, major points in the question and answers, the government takes this motion. So I would like to give this motion to the government, that big box stores should not be downtown. They proved their motion. Okay. And the speaker of the evening, I'd like to give to Gurjot. That would be the end of the adjudication.
Very good. So it's quite interesting that we had the adjudication and the popular vote. Now for the popular vote, the vote was 8 in favor of the opposition and 4 in favor of the government. Therefore, I declare the motion defeated.